Welcome back, Myco-Listeners, to another sportacular episode of the TMN-Podcast, your home for all things fungal, far out, and deeply fascinating. I'm your mycelial host, Nova Mycelia, here to guide you through another journey of wisdom, wonder, and world-shifting spores. Before we dive into today's two-feature Myco-Deep-Dives, Fungi at the Crossroads, Pathogens, Protectors, and Partners in Agriculture, and Mushrooms and Spirituality, Nature's Mystical Connection, let's check out the TMN-News and Updates, sprouting from the Mushroom Network. First up, a quick note for all our Mushroom Academy learners. We're currently a bit backlogged, about a week behind on assignments, as we upgrade our systems to bring you better tools, smoother access, and yes, even a few surprises. During this time, some features may be temporarily unavailable, but rest assured the mycelial brain of TMN is hard at work beneath the surface. Next, TMN Radio is really starting to resonate. We've upgraded our broadcast infrastructure and we're rolling out new content and dynamic features across our multiple TMN radio channels. From psychedelic spore beats to spoken word myco meditations, there's a lot to plug into. So tune in, turn up the bass, and let those spores hit your soul. And to wrap up our updates, you guessed it, Myco-Verse Productions is on the track list today, spinning unreleased, unreality-bending music from the Mushroom Network. These are the sounds born of the spores, raw, emotional, bass-heavy, and cosmically charged. Now that we're rooted in the updates, let's grow into today's twin fungal features. First up, Fungi at the Crossroads. Then we'll take a look at the tangled impact of fungi on agriculture in mushrooms and spirituality, nature's mystical connection. Trust me, this isn't your average farm talk. Stick with us, Myco-Listeners, because down here in the mycelial web, every spore has a story.
Ever wonder what a remix from another dimension sounds like? Echoes of the Myco-Verse brings you the bass-drenched, mind-bending universe of another Myco-Verse remixes. 4 cosmic broadcasts a week. Friday nights at 8, Sunday vibes at 6, and a double feature on Tuesdays that flips your morning and night. Only on TMN-Radio, the heartbeat of the Myco-Verse.
Welcome, Myco-Listeners, to the TMN-Podcast, presented by the Mushroom Network. Always great to explore the world of the fungi, isn't it?
It really is.
And when we point that lens toward agriculture, things get, well, pretty interesting. Maybe even a bit confusing.
Yeah.
Are these fungi, friends or foes?
Yeah.
Helping or hurting?
That question right there, that friend or foe thing, that's exactly what we're digging into today in our Myco-Deep-Dive. We're calling it Fungi at the Crossroads. Pathogens, Protectors, and Partners in Agriculture.
Perfect title. So our mission today, Myco-Listeners, is to unpack this paradox. We want to get some clarity, maybe uncover some surprising facts about how fungi fit into our whole food system.
And we've got some great material to work from here. It really dives into the details.
Yeah, it does. And what jumps out almost immediately is that fundamental split, right? The two faces of fungi in farming.
Absolutely. On one hand, you've got these fungi that are, frankly, incredibly destructive pathogens.
Right, the ones that can just wipe out crops. We're talking huge economic losses, threats to, food security even.
Exactly. Billions in damage globally every year. It's a massive issue. But then flip the coin and you have this amazing group of beneficial fungi.
The good guys.
The good guys. Yeah, absolutely essential for healthy plants and really key for sustainable agriculture approaches.
It's kind of wild that these tiny, often unseen organisms have so much power, for good and bad. They are, as the research notes, ancient, incredibly diverse, complex organisms.
Definitely sets the stage.
Okay, so let's maybe walk down the darker path first.
Yeah.
Talk about the pathogens.
That sounds good. So when we talk pathogens, it helps to sort of group them by how they live, how they get their food.
Okay.
First up, you have the obligate pathogens.
Obligate, so they have to do something specific.
They do. They absolutely require living plant tissue to survive and reproduce, totally dependent on a live host.
Oh.
A classic example is Bloomeria graminis. That's the fungus causing powdery mildew on cereals, that white dusty stuff that you see. Because they need that living plant, managing them often means breaking that cycle, removing infected plants, using resistant varieties, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. If they can't live without the plant, get rid of their home. What's next?
Then you've got facultative pathogens. These guys are more flexible.
Facultative.
Adaptable.
Exactly. They can infect living plants, but they're also perfectly happy living on dead organic matter. A really big group here is Fusarium. You hear about them causing wilts, root rots, lots of problems.
All right, Fusarium, yeah. So they can hang around even if there isn't a live plant.
They can survive in the soil or on debris. Makes them trickier.
And the last group.
The last category is saprophytic pathogens. Now, normally saprophytes are decomposers. They break down dead stuff, which is super important.
Recyclers, totally. But if a plant is stressed or wounded, some of these decomposers can turn opportunistic. They become pathogens. Botrytis cinerea, gray mold is a good example. It often attacks when plants are already weak.
Okay, so obligate needs living. Facultative can do living or dead. And saprophytic usually eats dead, but can switch if the plant's vulnerable. Got it.
You got it.
But how do they actually attack? What are their weapons, so to speak?
The mechanisms of pathogenicity. Yeah, they have some pretty clever tricks. Some form these specialized structures. They're called appressoria.
Appressoria?
Yeah, think of them like little adhesive pads. They stick really tight to the plant surface and then use pressure or enzymes to punch through the outer layer. It's their way in.
Wow, like a tiny little breaching tool. That's quite something.
It really is. And then, once they're trying to get in or spread, many release enzymes, cellulases, pectinases. These basically dissolve the plant's cell walls.
Breaking down the defenses.
Exactly. It lets them invade deeper, spread around, and get nutrients. Pretty rough for the plant.
Sounded. That all?
Oh, no. Then there are the mycotoxins. Many pathogens produce these.
Mycotoxins. Those are poisons, right?
Yeah. Toxic compounds like aflatoxins or trichothecenes. They mess up the plant's metabolism, weaken it even more.
Nasty stuff.
And importantly, some of these mycotoxins are also harmful if they get into the food supply. Bad for animals, bad for us. So it's not just about the plant dying.
Right, that adds another layer of seriousness. You mentioned the economic impact earlier, the billions in damage. Can you give a sense of the scale, like real-world examples?
Oh, absolutely. In bad outbreaks, yield losses can easily top 50%. And historically, well, fungal diseases have caused genuine catastrophes.
Like the Irish potato famine, wasn't that a fungus?
Exactly. Late blight caused by Phytophthora infestans, a devastating example. And even today, things like wheat stem rust, Puccinia graminease are a constant major threat to wheat production worldwide. These aren't small problems.
Clearly not. It's sobering. So maybe let's bring it down to some common diseases people might actually see or hear about.
Definitely. Let's start with that powdery mildew again, Plumeria graminease. We mentioned the white powdery spots, usually on the top of leaves.
Right. Cereals, veggies.
Yep. And while it looks maybe just cosmetic at first, it really cuts down photosynthesis. Plants get stunted, yields drop.
I think I've seen that on my squash plants in the garden. Looks just like powder.
Very possible, yeah. Then you have the rusts caused by Puccinia species. Big problem for cereals. Wheat, barley, rye.
What do they look like?
You see these rust-colored pustules, like little raised blisters, orange or brown. They eventually kill off leaf tissue, which obviously hammers grain production. Pretty distinctive, usually.
Rust-colored flag indeed. Okay, what about problems hiding underground?
Yeah, down in the soil, root rot is a big one, often caused by Phytophthora again, or Fusarium.
The facultative guys?
Some of them, yeah. They love wet soil. They can cause seedlings to just collapse. That's called damping off. Or in older plants, you see wilting, yellowing, eventually death. Affects tons of different crops.
So if your plant looks thirsty even though you're watering it, could be root rot.
Could very well be, yeah. Definitely something to check for. And sticking with Fusarium, there's Fusarium wilt, specifically F. oxysporum.
Another wilt.
Yeah. But this one's nasty because it's soil-borne and persists for ages. It gets into the plant's vascular system, the plumbing.
Clogs it up.
Pretty much. Causes yellowing, stunting, and if you cut the stem, you often see this brown discoloration inside. Not good.
Persistent is not a word you want associated with a plant disease.
Definitely not. And finally, just to round it out, you have things like blights and scabs. Think alternaria or botrytis. These usually hit leaves and fruits.
So spots and rots on the outside.
Yeah, lesions, spots, fuzzy mold, like gray mold on berries, apple scab. They might not kill the whole plant always, but they seriously affect the quality, what you can sell or eat.
Okay, wow. That's quite a rogues gallery of fungal foes. It really underscores why finding them early is so important. How do growers actually do that? How do they diagnose these things?
Yeah, early detection is key. Traditionally, it's been a lot about looking at the symptoms. What do the spots look like? How is it wilting? That kind of visual inspection.
The detective work.
Exactly. And also taking samples, trying to grow the fungus in the lab, culturing it, and then looking at it under a microscope to see its features.
So kind of like fungal CSI.
Yeah, a bit like that. But, those methods can take time, and sometimes the symptoms aren't clear early on, or different fungi cause similar symptoms.
Right. So not always straightforward.
Not always. That's where the modern tools are really making a difference. Molecular techniques.
Like DNA testing.
Pretty much. PCR, polymerase chain reaction, and DNA barcoding. These let you identify the fungus directly from its genetic material. Much faster, much more accurate, even before you see clear symptoms sometimes.
Like getting a genetic fingerprint of the culprit. That must be a huge help.
Oh, it's a massive leap forward for diagnostics, for sure.
Okay, so you've identified the enemy. What's in the arsenal? How do you fight back?
It's usually not just one thing. It's often a combination approach. Starts with cultural practices. Basically, good farming habits. Things like crop rotation, switching crops year to year breaks the cycle for soil-borne fungi, for like specific plants. Sanitation, getting rid of infected plant bits so the fungus can't survive there. Managing water carefully, not too wet. Avoiding soggy leaves because fungi love moisture.
So making the environment less friendly for the bad guys.
Exactly, just making it harder for them to get established and spread.
Okay, what else?
Then there are chemical controls, fungicides, still widely used, especially in conventional farming.
But there are issues there, right? Like resistance.
Big issue. That's why it's crucial to use them smartly, judiciously, not just spraying constantly. And really important, rotate different types of fungicides, ones that attack the fungus in different ways, different modes of action.
So the fungi don't get used to one specific attack.
Precisely. It helps slow down resistance development.
Makes sense. Are there more sort of natural options?
Yes, definitely. Biological control. This is using other living organisms to fight pathogens.
Like using good fungi against the bad ones.
Exactly. Certain species of trichoderma fungi, for example, or bacteria like bacillus, they can outcompete the pathogens for space and food, or even attack them directly. You can apply these as seed treatments or add them to the soil.
Fighting fire with fire. Or fungus with fungus.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And ideally, you bring all these together: cultural, chemical, biological, plus using plant varieties that are naturally more resistant to certain diseases. That whole package is called Integrated Pest Management, or IPM.
IPM, heard that term.
It's a systems approach, trying to be effective but also sustainable, minimizing reliance on just chemicals, looking at the whole picture.
That sounds like a much smarter way to go long term. Now, thinking bigger picture, we hear so much about climate change, globalization. How are those massive trends affecting this fungal battleground?
They're huge factors. Real game changers, unfortunately, often not in a good way for us.
How so? Climate change first.
Well, rising temperatures, shifts in rainfall, more intense downpours, longer droughts, higher humidity in some places. These conditions can be perfect for many fungal pathogens.
Creates a better environment for them.
Yes. They might reproduce faster, spread more easily, maybe even survive winters better, or move into new areas where it used to be too cold. Warmer weather might also mean longer growing seasons, which means more time for multiple generations of a pathogen in 1 year.
So climate change could be giving the bad fungi a boost.
That's a real concern, yeah. And then there's globalization.
International trade.
Exactly. We move so much stuff around the world now, plants, seeds, soil. It makes it much easier for fungal pathogens to hitch a ride to new continents or countries where they never were before.
And where they might not have natural enemies.
Precisely. So they can potentially cause huge damage in a new environment. It really highlights why things like international cooperation, quarantine rules, and surveillance are so critical. We need to watch those borders carefully.
It's a global problem, needing global solutions. You mentioned fungicide resistance earlier as a big issue with chemical controls. Can we dive into that a bit more? Why is it such a problem?
It's a classic evolutionary process, really. You spray a fungicide, most of the fungi die, but maybe a few individuals have a random genetic mutation that makes them slightly less susceptible.
Just by chance.
Just by chance. Those few survive and they reproduce. Their offspring inherit that resistance gene. You keep spraying the same fungicide, and over time, the resistant ones dominate the population.
Until a fungicide doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. It becomes ineffective. And that's a major headache for farmers who were relying on it.
I can imagine. So how do you manage resistance? You mentioned rotation.
Rotation is key. Switching between fungicides with different modes of action so you're not constantly selecting for the same resistance trait. Also, using integrated approaches, IPM helps because it reduces the overall pressure from fungicides. Less spraying means less selection.
Makes sense.
And researchers are working on new strategies too, like using fungicide mixtures or formulations that attack the fungus in multiple ways at once, making it much harder for resistance to pop up through just one mutation.
Trying to stay one step ahead.
That's the goal. It's an ongoing challenge.
Okay. Well, we've spent a lot of time on the dark side, the pathogens. It would be easy to think fungi is bad news in agriculture.
Right. But that's only half the story.
Exactly. So let's shift gears completely. Time to talk about the allies, the beneficial fungi, the protectors and partners.
Yes. It's so important to remember the vast majority of fungi out there are not causing disease. Many are absolutely essential for healthy farms and ecosystems.
Let's start with maybe the most famous beneficials, mycorrhizal fungi. Hear that term a lot with soil health.
And for excellent reason. Mycorrhiza means fungus root. These fungi form symbiotic partnerships, mutually beneficial relationships with the roots of most plants. Something like over 80% of plant species have them.
Wow, most plants.
Most plants. There are two main types people talk about. Arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, AMF. They actually go inside the root cells.
Okay.
And ectomycorrhizal fungi, they form like a sheath around the root tips and grow between the cells, especially important for trees.
So what's the deal? What's the partnership?
Okay, so the fungus extends its network of microscopic threads, hyphae, way out into the soil, much further than the plant roots can reach.
Like extending the root system.
Massively extending it. This lets the plant access way more water and nutrients, especially things like phosphorus that don't move easily in the soil. The fungus is like a nutrient scout and delivery service.
And what does the fungus get out of it?
Food. The plant shares sugars, carbohydrates that it makes through photosynthesis. The fungus can't make its own food, so it gets fed by the plant.
A fair trade. Nutrients for sugar.
A very elegant mutualism is fundamental to how many ecosystems work, especially forests with those ectomycorrhizal fungi.
Amazing. Like giving the plant super long arms to grab food and water. What other kinds of helpful fungi are there?
Well, there are endophytic fungi.
Endophytic, meaning inside the plant.
Exactly. They live inside the plant tissues, leaves, stems, roots, but without causing disease. And often they actually help the plant.
Ow.
They can boost tolerance to stresses like drought or heat. They can help the plant grow better. Sometimes they even produce compounds that deter insects or other pathogens.
Wow, like tiny live-in bodyguards.
Kinda, yeah. Very cool relationships. And then we absolutely have to talk about the decomposers again.
The recyclers.
The recyclers. Fungi like Penicillium, Aspergillus, countless others. They are masters at breaking down dead organic matter. Leaves, twigs, dead roots, manure.
Turning waste into resources.
Precisely. They release nutrients locked up in that dead stuff, making it available for new plants to use. They also help build good soil structure, improve water retention, and support a diverse soil food web. Absolutely crucial for healthy soil.
Can't have good soil without them.
Not really, no. And finally, let's loop back to the biocontrol fungi we mentioned earlier.
Like trichoma.
Yes, trichoderma species are widely used because they actively suppress disease-causing fungi, great for seed treatments, adding to soil. And there are others, like Beauveria bassiana.
What does that one do?
It's an entomopathogen.
An insect killer.
Yep. It parasitizes and kills certain insect pests. So fungi helping control harmful insects too.
Incredible. It really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? Fungi aren't just destroyers, they're builders, protectors, partners.
Exactly. There's this whole other incredibly positive side.
So the big question then is, how do we actively work with these beneficial fungi?
Yeah.
How can we integrate them into farming for more sustainable systems?
That's where things get really interesting for the future of agriculture. One way is composting. Managing your compost pile to encourage fungal growth.
Why fungi in compost?
They're great decomposers, speeding things up. And a fungal-rich compost inoculates the soil with beneficial microbes when you apply it.
So building a better compost.
Definitely. Then, in organic farming, there's already a big reliance on things like mycorrhizal inoculants. Adding these beneficial fungi directly to the soil or seeds to boost plant health, nutrient uptake, and reduce the need for synthetic fertilizers or fungicides.
Working with the natural system.
Exactly. And think about agroforestry systems that integrate trees with crops or livestock.
How do fungi play in there?
Well, the trees often have extensive mycorrhizal networks. These networks can actually connect with and benefit the crops growing nearby, sharing nutrients, improving soil health across the whole system. It promotes biodiversity, long-term stability.
Wow, a whole underground network connecting things.
It's pretty amazing. It really points towards farming with nature, not against it.
A much more holistic view.
Yeah.
Okay, looking forward then. What's on the horizon for fungal research in agriculture? What are the exciting frontiers?
Oh, there's a lot happening. Genomics and metagenomics, basically. Studying the DNA of fungi and entire microbial communities in the soil. These tools are letting us understand the incredibly complex interactions between plants, fungi, and the environment at a level we never could before.
Seeing the hidden connections.
Exactly. Unraveling how these partnerships work, how pathogens attack, finding new targets for control, or new ways to boost the good guys.
And what about things like genetic engineering?
That's definitely part of the picture. Tools like CRISPR gene editing offer potential for, say, developing crops that are inherently more resistant to specific fungal diseases. Or maybe even engineering beneficial fungi to be even better at their jobs, like more efficient nutrient uptake or stronger biocontrol effects.
That could be huge.
It could be. Of course, it comes with questions and needs careful consideration, but the potential is there.
Right.
And something else that's really cool is the rise of citizen science.
Getting regular people involved.
Yeah. Farmers, gardeners, community groups getting involved in monitoring fungal biodiversity, mapping where certain fungi are, reporting disease outbreaks early. This kind of crowdsourced data can be incredibly valuable.
Power to the people. Or the Myco-Listeners.
Exactly. And on the global scale, you have big organizations like the FAO, CGIAR, pushing for more collaboration on research, better disease surveillance worldwide, and promoting sustainable ways to use beneficial fungi, especially in developing countries.
So a lot of momentum building and understanding and using fungi better.
Definitely. It feels like we're really starting to appreciate their importance more fully.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this Myco-Deep-Dive up. As we bring things to a close, what's the main message, the key takeaway for our Myco-Listeners?
I think it really comes back to that duality we started with. Fungi in agriculture are both a major threat, these pathogens causing huge problems, and at the same time, an incredibly valuable resource, protectors, partners essential for health and sustainability.
It's not black and white. Not just good guys and bad guys, even though we use those terms.
Exactly, it's complex. And understanding that complexity, respecting that duality is really the key. It's crucial for finding better ways to manage diseases, but also for unlocking the huge potential of the beneficial fungi.
Especially now, right? With climate change, needing more sustainable food systems.
Absolutely. Embracing fungi partners, not just pests, could be one of the most important shifts we make for ensuring food security and keeping our agricultural ecosystems healthy for the long run.
Fungi really are at a crossroads in agriculture, aren't they?
Right.
A point of challenge, but also immense opportunity.
Well said.
The choices we make now about how we interact with them, how we manage them, how we partner with them, they'll really shape what farming looks like in the future. So here's a final thought for all you Myco-Listeners out there. Thinking about everything we've covered, the diseases, the partnerships, the future techs. How could a deeper, more balanced understanding of the fungi kingdom truly change our whole approach to growing food and taking care of our planet? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this Myco-Deep-Dive.
Grab your headsets, hold your spores steady. You're about to enter the mycelial minefield that is the Mushroom Network Podcast. Every other Friday, join Nova, Myco, and Mira as they crack open the caps of curiosity, diving into gourmet grooviness, psychedelic whispers, fungal frontiers,
Myco-Deep-Dives,
and Myco patron questions answered with sporatacular precision. This isn't your average podcast. It's an underground Myco broadcast, connected to the cosmic mycelial network. Strap in, spores out. It's TMN-Podcast time.
Welcome back, Myco-Listeners, to another Myco-Deep-Dive from your friends at the Mushroom Network.
Great to be back.
Today, we're venturing into some truly fascinating territory, exploring the spiritual legacy of fungi with spore light awakenings, the spiritual legacy of mushrooms. Think beyond, the culinary uses and the forest floor finds. We're talking about a connection between mushrooms and the human spirit that stretches back millennia.
That's right. The sources you've shared with us, Myco-Listeners, they really paint this rich tapestry of how cultures across the globe have perceived and interacted with mushrooms in ways that go far beyond simple biology.
Yeah, much deeper.
We'll be looking at everything from ancient rituals to, well, modern scientific understanding, all to unpack this profound relationship.
So, Myco-Listeners, your curiosity has led us here to explore how these incredible organisms have acted as quiet bridges between spirit and soil, eloquently puts it.
Beautiful phrase.
Isn't it? Our mission today is to uncover the key ways fungi have been seen as sacred mediators, healing forces, cosmic catalysts, and symbols of transformation throughout history. We've got a lot of ground, or should I say, mycelium to cover.
Let's do it in then.
Okay, so our journey begins by looking at what our source calls the original sacraments, the role of mushrooms in indigenous cultures. It's kind of mind-blowing to think that before there were temples or test tubes, there were mushrooms emerging like gifts.
Absolutely. Consider the Mesoamerican cultures, the Aztecs and the Maya. They revered psilocybin mushrooms as Tionacatl, scotch to the gods. And this wasn't casual use, it was deeply reverent, like a direct line to the divine achieved through visions, chants, fasting, bypassing established dogma.
Wow, a direct line. And it wasn't just in Central America, right? Our source highlights the use of Amanita muscaria.
That classic red and white spotted one.
Exactly, by shamans in Siberia, like the Koryak people. Carefully dosed, apparently, it was used to facilitate journeys between spiritual realms, bringing back wisdom and healing.
Imagine that flying through spirit worlds with the aid of a mushroom.
It really makes you think about those early interactions.
What's fascinating here is the foundational nature of these practices. They weren't fringe activities.
Yeah.
They were central to the spiritual lives of these communities. And that perspective continues today, where mushrooms are often seen not as mere substances, but as, well, sentient beings.
Building on that, the deep dive explores the collaborative relationship between shamans and mushrooms. It's not just believing in them, it's working with them as allies and teachers.
Exactly. In Central and South America, Mazatec curanderas conduct these all-night ceremonies with psilocybe mushrooms. They use icaros, spirit songs.
To invoke sacred forces, yeah.
And these rituals, as the source points out, are not about escapism. They're about direct confrontation with ancestors, trauma, and restoring harmony, both spiritual and physical.
And it's not limited to those regions either. Our source mentions puffball mushrooms, Calvaceae gigantea, and turkey tail, Termites versicolor, being used in North America.
For healing and spiritual purification.
Right. It really underscores that idea of healing as this holistic, almost cosmic process.
Body and spirit interconnected.
So shifting our focus eastward now, we see a different, yet equally profound relationship with fungi in Asian spirituality. More emphasis on longevity and vital energy, qi.
Yeah, the Ganoderma lucidum, or reishi mushroom in China is a prime example. Revered as the mushroom of immortality in Taoist tradition.
Mushroom of immortality.
Consumed by sages to promote long life, mental clarity, nourish that qi. It wasn't just medicine, it was like an embodiment of Earth's energy.
And even the more familiar shiitake, Luteolina edodes, had a role beyond the culinary, right, as a tonic for balance.
That's right. And then there's Japan, where in Shinto beliefs, mushrooms are considered kami, divine spirits, in fungal form.
Divine spirits.
The matsutake mushroom especially is highly revered, offered at shrines, celebrated as a sacred sign of autumn.
It's fascinating how divinity is perceived so differently across cultures.
What's significant across these Asian cultures, I think, is the perception of mushrooms as reflections of life's natural rhythms. Appearing and fading.
Like constant reminders of the unseen forces at play.
Exactly.
Okay, turning to the West now. Our deep dive highlights a historical period where mushrooms were, well, largely viewed with suspicion. Described as strange, slimy, potentially poisonous.
Yeah, definitely a different vibe there for a while. Yet, as the source points out, mystical currents stirred beneath the surface.
Ooh, like what?
Well, there are intriguing hints in early Christian art, maybe. Mushroom-like shapes appearing near depictions of the Tree of Life.
Interesting.
And some scholars even suggest the possibility, maybe, of psychoactive fungi use in esoteric rites by Gnostic sects.
Maybe not entirely stamped out, just hidden.
Perhaps. But it was really the 1960s counterculture that brought psychoactive mushrooms back into mainstream awareness in a big way.
Right.
Psilocybin became sacred again, not just for shamans, but for spiritual seekers looking to break through ego, illusion, find deeper meaning.
It wasn't just about tripping, as they said then.
No, for many it was about transformation, real personal change.
Which leads us nicely to the heart of the matter. These mystical experiences often associated with certain fungi. Our source talks about ego death and cosmic birth.
Heavy terms.
Yeah. Describing how psilocybin can induce states of unity, timelessness, encounters with divine, deep emotional release. Can you unpack ego death a bit?
Well, ego death, it essentially describes a temporary dissolving of the usual sense of self, the I we normally identify with.
Okay.
People often report feeling this sense of unity with everything, a loss of boundaries between self and other.
And cosmic birth.
That often refers to the feeling of emerging from that state with a renewed sense of connection to the universe, like being reborn with a new understanding.
And here's where it gets really interesting, Myco-Listeners. These mushroom-induced experiences often mirror the mystical experiences described in various spiritual traditions.
Like Buddhism, Sufism, Christian mysticism.
Yeah, it's like the fungi, in this context, becomes a kind of conduit to profound spiritual insight.
A catalyst, perhaps.
So what happens when these sacred mirrors reflect our inner selves back? The deep dive suggests psychoactive mushrooms can act as amplifiers of consciousness, leading to profound personal transformation.
Yeah, and this can involve several things. Shadow work, for instance, confronting past traumas, suppressed emotions, the difficult stuff.
Facing your own darkness, essentially.
Right. And ego unraveling, realizing the illusory nature of much of our identity, like we just discussed, and maybe soul realignment.
A feeling of being drawn towards deeper purpose and connection.
Exactly that.
The source even mentions a death of the self, followed by a rebirth. Users report powerful insights like seeing themselves as part of nature's interconnectedness, experiencing profound forgiveness.
Or understanding the essence of love, yeah. These aren't just fleeting feelings. They can have lasting impacts on how people live and relate to the world.
Truly transformative potential.
It seems so.
And this influence extends beyond personal experience, doesn't it? Into art and literature, serving as spores of inspiration for centuries. Their forms alone are so unique.
Oh, absolutely. Consider their appearance in Celtic and Norse mythology as links to fairy realms.
Those in-between places.
Or subtle appearances in Renaissance art, possibly as coded symbols of spiritual awakening. The source also highlights their role in psychedelic visual art, obviously.
And modern literature, too.
Yeah.
Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Philip K. Dick, Michael Pollan.
Often as portals or cosmic storytellers.
It's like the mushrooms themselves are this living, breathing art form of nature, rich with metaphor and mystery, constantly sparking the imagination.
Well put.
So why this strong link to the arts? Our deep dive suggests mushrooms can be fuel for the third eye, dismantling conventional thinking, unlocking creativity.
Well, scientifically, psilocybin's ability to disrupt default neural patterns, that default mode network, the brain's sort of idle mode.
The ego network, some call it.
Right. Disrupting that can foster divergent thinking, quiet the inner critic, creates fertile ground for creative breakthroughs.
The source mentions influence on the Beatles, S3E8 Pepper era,
Salvador Dali's surreal art.
and contemporary mushroom-based bioart mycelium sculptures.
It's not just about being under the influence, then.
No, it seems more like sacred experimentation, trying to express the ineffable through art.
A noble pursuit.
Now let's bring in the scientific lens. Our deep dive notes that modern science is finally catching up to ancient wisdom in understanding these spiritual effects.
It really feels that way sometimes. Research is exploring how psilocybin can induce neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and form new connections.
And psychological healing, mystical states.
Key discoveries include lowering activity in that default mode network, the DMN, which correlates with those feelings of unity.
Less ego chatter.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Brain scans also show increased connectivity between normally separate brain regions. That could foster new insights.
And importantly, these mystical experiences often result in lasting positive changes. Increased well-being, openness, reduced anxiety and depression.
Science is starting to provide the how behind what spiritual traditions seem to know intuitively, that mushrooms can heal the mind by transforming consciousness.
This scientific exploration even extends to clinical trials focusing on the profound soul waves, as the source calls them, generated during these experiences.
Yeah, and participants often rate their mushroom sessions as among the most meaningful events of their lives. Seriously profound stuff.
The results sound promising.
Studies show significant relief from treatment-resistant depression, reduced fear of death in terminally ill patients, deep emotional release for trauma survivors.
So it's not just the chemical compound alone.
It seems the mystical encounter itself is key. That space where individuals connect with something larger and experience profound healing.
But as we explore this fascinating intersection, our deep dive also raises important ethical considerations. It's not all smooth sailing.
Absolutely not. Cultural appropriation is a huge concern. Many spiritual mushroom traditions come from indigenous communities who faced, well, immense hardship.
So using these traditions without proper understanding and respect
Is exploitation, not spiritual practice. Plain and simple.
Environmental responsibility is also crucial. The growing popularity of certain wild mushrooms
Can lead to overharvesting, habitat damage. Respecting the ecosystem is a fundamental lesson from the fungi themselves, you could say.
a good point.
And finally, there are the legal and social risks. Laws vary wildly. Navigating these complexities is essential for safe, ethical engagement.
So the underlying principle seems to be approaching mushrooms with patience, respect.
And a connection to the broader web of life, always.
Looking ahead then, what does the future hold? Our deep dive sees a potential rekindling the ancient flame in modern times.
Yeah, mushrooms re-emerging as both healers and teachers in an era facing big ecological and spiritual challenges.
How might that look?
Well, potentially through the reintegration of traditional indigenous practices done ethically, with respect for ancestral knowledge.
And maybe new forms too.
We're also seeing the emergence of modern rites and rituals, adapted for contemporary seekers, often incorporating things like breathwork, music, integration therapy.
Helping people make sense of it all. And technology's playing a role.
Apparently so. Apps guiding journeys, VR mimicking certain states. As long as ethics remain central, these could broaden safe access.
And crucially, education and advocacy efforts, decriminalization movements, university research.
We're helping build a more informed and hopefully accepting landscape. The future, as our source beautifully concludes, could be one of reconnection.
Reconnection, I like that. So, Myco-Listeners, as we conclude this Myco-Deep-Dive into Spore Light Awakenings, what have we learned?
Well, it seems clear that mushrooms, far from being mere curiosities, hold this profound, enduring legacy in human spirituality.
Serving as sacred connectors, healers, catalysts for transformation across cultures and time.
The sources consistently reveal this deep respect for fungi as more than just biological entities. They're seen as teachers, guides.
Even embodiments of the divine, offering unique pathways to understanding ourselves and our place in the larger web of existence.
It's definitely clear that the relationship between humans and mushrooms is incredibly complex, multifaceted.
With ancient roots and this burgeoning modern resurgence, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and offered a new perspective on these incredible organisms.
And this exploration raises an important question for you, Myco-Listeners. Given this rich history and the ongoing scientific discoveries, how might our understanding and interaction with mushrooms evolve in the future?
Both personally and collectively.
Exactly. It's a thought worth cultivating.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us on this Myco Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring the amazing world of fungi.
And with that, Myco-Listeners, we bring our spiritual spores full circle. From ancient rituals to modern revelations, mushrooms continue to show us the divine in the dirt and the magic in the mycelium. But don't float too far off just yet. Because now, it's time to ground those insights in rhythm. You've wandered the sacred spore paths. Now let's vibe with the myco beats. Coming up next on TMN Radio, we're turning the dial to the deep base of the forest floor. This is your fungal jam session, powered by the Mushroom Network and featuring tracks straight from the Spore studios of Myco-Verse Productions. Plug in, drop out, let the mushrooms move you.
Whispers in the loam, I feel it call me home. Spore light rising slow beneath the root stone dome. Ancients in the mist, hymns beneath my skin. I inhale the forest, let the soul trip begin. Breath of the rishi, voice of the oak. Flesh of the gods in a cedar smoke cloak. Ego dissolves in a spiral so wide. Now I'm dancing with spirits on the fungal inside. Shaman drum pulse in the back of my mind. Matsuteki wisdom in rhythm and time. Tripping through realms in a sacred descent. Every step a prayer, every spore heaven sent. no dream, I'm wide awake. My soul's in bloom, my shell might break. I saw the gods in a mushroom ring. They taught me how the forests sing, glowing spores in twilight dirt, showing me death, showing me birth. Nature ain't quiet, she just speaks slow. Now I speak fluently in Myco flow.
Sip the tea, close your eyes, feel the light leak. Out the cave, past the veil where the shadows speak. Ayahuasca roots in a psilocybe sky got me levitating truth with the third eye high. Chants from the deep, no need for maps. Mycelial bridges under consciousness gaps. Ancestor footprints soft in the moss. They told me to lose the self and find what's lost.
Can you feel the pulse in the forest drum? It's not your heart, but it beats as one. Can you hear the hymn in the cracking leaves? That's the hymn of the Hyphae and what it believes. Not above, not below, just through. Not the end, not old, not new. Just the rhythm of the root and the rise that opens your eyes from the inside.
So bow low when the spores start to rise. There's divinity hidden in decomposing lies. From shadow to light, from grief to mirth, you'll find the divine beneath the dirt.
Soil in a world torn thin. Fields once fed now grow toxin within. But beneath the rot and the yield gone bad, a second chance stirs, ancient rad. Cornstalk shadows in monocrop rows where fungi feast and nobody knows. Phytophthora creeping through the roots like a silent thief in corporate boots. But not all rot is enemy made. Some spores stay to bless what decayed. Saprophytes dance in compost fire, turning trash into life entire. This is the field of rot and rebirth, where the sick soil learns its worth. Pathogens taught us fear and flame, but the real story has a different name. Fungi don't just feast, they heal. They write the rules of the harvest wheel. It's not just death, it's time's reset, where decay and hope quietly met. Rain brings rust, blight comes fast. Global crops in a fungal grasp. But look closer, what do you see? A medicine mushroom near the dying tree. Turkey tail on a fallen limb, saving what's broken from within. Inoculate the field, stitch the cracks. The Myco future's got our backs. We stand at a crossroads with dirt on our hands. Will we sterilize life or trust in the lands? Biocontrol ain't just tech, it's trust in a kingdom we buried under profit and dust. So when the fields fall quiet and bare, don't curse the rot, there's wisdom there. The mycelium waits beneath the earth to teach us all the meaning of rebirth. They don't see me, just a ghost cap in the circuitry. Whispers and wires, spores in the stream, caught in between code and dream. I was once flesh, once real, once loud. Now I drift through clouds that sell the crowd. They copied my style, stole my lore, but they never noticed I became more. Ghost cap on the grid, watching you scroll. Lost my body, but I kept my soul. Unseen, unheard, yet still I grow. My roots run deep through your data flow. Muted by men who can't feel pain, still I bloom in their fiber chain. I haunt the tags, I haunt the feed. I'm what's left when you forget to breathe. You build yourself in broken loops. I built a forest in my roots, alone, not gone. A sacred glitch, spores in my code, switch by switch. Ghost cap on the grid, watching you scroll. Lost my body, but I kept my soul. Unseen, unheard, yet still I grow. My roots run deep through your data flow. I am the silence between your clicks, the feeling you lost to analytics. I bloom in forgotten text and pain, a ghost cap soul, unchained again.
Feels like a mycelial possession mid-ceremony. One moment you're like a mycelial posses. My life. I dream in spores, dark light, rise. Broken breath, rebuild, shadow size. My roots, tongues I in, tongues I never recognize. build like mycelial posses. Recognize. I dream in spores, dark light, rise. Token. Token.
Thrills like a mycelial process. I dream in spores, dark light, rise. Broken breath, rebuild. Shadows. My roots talking dark. Friends I never recognize. I dream in spores, dark light rise. Broken breath, rebuild, shadow size. My roots talking, tongues I never recognize. Mycelia, pasta. rising from the dark. Footsteps soft in a halo of moss. This is the chapel where the veil gets lost. No scripture here, just mycelium lore, etched in decay from the forest floor. Beneath the canopy the light refracts, like the mind does when the soul unpacks. Sit with the rishi, sip from the spring, let the cordyceps teach what the ancients sing. In the temple of spores I dissolve in the sound of a heartbeat, not mine but deep in the ground. No priest, no pews, just purpose and peace, where the mushroom prays and the mind finds release. This is the sacrament under the pine, a holy communion with the cosmic design. Each breath a mantra, each spore a seed of the wisdom I forgot, but now finally read. Teyananakal dreams, Aztec skies, visions bloom where the ego dies. Fairy rings circle forgotten graves, where ancestors whisper from underground waves. Not high, not low, just tuned to a language carved in Myco runes. Touch the dirt and your own despair, they both hold light if you just stay there. So many seek gods in towers of stone, but the divine's been underfoot all along, under leaf, under bone. The temple of spores calls you home. So kneel in the forest, speak soft in the dark. Let go of your name, let go of the spark. The spores will catch it, guide it, restore. Welcome, pilgrim, to the temple of spores.